Hey y'all, I'm still on this merger topic. So today what we're talking about is how David Zaslav destroyed HBO through this Warner Brothers Discovery merger and put them in the position to be taken over by Netflix anyway, or maybe Paramount, because now Paramount's trying to do a hostile takeover. Neither here nor there. We'll talk about that next time. So, in order to understand how HBO got ruined, it's imperative that we understand what HBO actually is. HBO has always been the gold standard of prestige television because it has always valued slow cooked, thorough storytelling over instant gratification, and everything that they made reflected their philosophy. One of their greatest strengths was their willingness to let shows evolve. And Succession and Game of Thrones are really good examples of that because Game of Thrones, that show did not really fully hold my attention until like season 3, The Red Wedding. And Succession really didn't grab my attention until the season finale. But HBO is the type of channel that'll let something cook long enough to create something that is truly great. And the mind behind what we recognize as HBO today is this man right down here, Casey Bloys. So who is Casey Bloys? Casey Bloys is the chairman and CEO of HBO and Max Content, okay? And he's been with HBO for almost 20 years. He ran it during the absolute peak era. Game of Thrones, Succession, Euphoria, White Lotus, Sopranos, Girls, The Leftovers, House of the Dragon. This historic run that HBO has on, where they have been unbeatable at the Emmys, is all due to the discernment and taste of this man right here. And it is because of his keen understanding of what prestige TV is at its core, which is patience, long arcs, deep character work, and storytelling that pays off over years, not weeks, which made HBO feel like a sanctuary instead of just a content factory, like the person who's trying to take it over might sometimes look like, okay? And while Casey Bloys remains the chairman and CEO of Max Content and HBO Content, in April 2022, when Warner Brothers merged with Discovery and installed this guy as a CEO, everything changed. And who is this guy? This is David Zaslav, aka my arch nemesis, okay? He doesn't know who I am. David Zaslav comes from Discovery, which is a network that is built on fast, cheap, and formulaic TV, which is completely different from the business model HBO is built upon, which is prestige storytelling, okay? He has tried to run HBO and Warner Brothers, quite frankly, under Discovery economics. And it's like asking a Michelin star restaurant to operate like a McDonald's and asking the Michelin star restaurant, well, why are you using such expensive ingredients? Like, it just fundamentally doesn't make sense. This man has never fully understood the asset that he purchased, which is why he has been diminishing it despite Casey's best efforts over the past 4 years. And now we are in a situation where the company is in a position to be bought out by either Netflix or Paramount. It kind of depends. The news has been changing, okay? This merger was always going to be a disaster because they have fundamentally different company ethos. Discovery is built on speed and cost cutting, and HBO is built on depth and patience, and also a lot of financial investment. And those two systems cannot coincide without one destroying the other. So how did Zaslav destroy HBO? Well, let's talk about it. So what did David Zaslav do? One of the things he did is that he purged HBO's back catalog in order to save money on residuals, which also included deleting several fully finished shows and movies, like Batgirl, for instance. He also removed the entire Looney Tunes back catalog and sold it off for parts, which is completely insane. Also, to me, one of the most egregious things that got removed that personally hurt my feelings is that they removed Westworld, which may have had some rough seasons around season 2, season 3, but is one of the flagship HBO shows that totally embodies the network's ambition and willingness to take intellectual risks. Westworld was one of the smartest shows on television, but he sold it off like it was garbage just for a tax write-off or whatever. It was crazy. And Batgirl was a fully finished movie, but he didn't let it release just so he could write the tax write-off. He was trying to find $3 billion somewhere, and he looked for it in the most egregious and twisted of places. Another thing that he did in the name of cost cutting was sabotage some of HBO's crown jewel IPs that are still in existence, okay? During the writer's strike, House of the Dragon had storyboarded, I believe, 9 episodes of House of the Dragon season 2, okay? But during the writer's strike, Zaslav came along and said, sorry, even after they had already prepared the whole season to be that 9 episodes, he's like, sorry, you can only do this in 8 episodes. You got to cut the episode off. So everybody, the whole House of the Dragon fandom was pissed because the season finale felt totally unfinished. But this guy is why that happened. And he did the same thing with Last of Us. Last of Us had storyboarded, I believe, 8 or 9 episodes and had actually started production. But Zaslav came along and said, no, actually, you need to only do 7 or 8. I would have to look up how many episodes there were, which again truncated the season and limited their ability to fully gestate storytelling, as if the 9 to 12 episode model isn't already short enough. It's insane. Another 100% foolish thing that this guy did was dropping HBO from HBO Max and rebranding it, the service, as Max, which is one of the most baffling branding decisions that has been made in modern television and media history. It's insane. HBO is one of the most recognizable brands and names in television. So to strip it of what it actually is at the core of its brand shows such a lack of understanding of the value of the asset that he had. It's crazy. So as a result, one of the most incredible companies in prestige television, the gold standard that everybody was striving, including Netflix, to reach, was significantly diminished in favor of cost cutting. He, instead of investing in content that retained subscribers, he prioritized short-term cost savings, which resulted in subscriber losses at the exact moment where Netflix was ascendant and gaining millions of subscribers. Cutting your strongest content to save money is not a strategy. It is brand vandalism, point blank, period. Under Discovery's leadership, HBO's decline became structurally inevitable because late-stage capitalism rewards cheap, fast, high-output content and punishes slow, expensive, creator-driven artistry, which is what HBO was so good at, and what ultimately resulted in the dividends that investment in real artistry does. It pays off in the long run, maybe not in the short term, but it pays off eventually. Consolidation and corporate consolidation in media prioritizes IP stripping, mass production, and low risk, which suffocates the kind of ambitious, long arc storytelling that defined prestige TV and that defined HBO. And prestige TV did not die because viewers stopped wanting depth. It died because the economic structures in the entertainment business has collapsed under corporate consolidation. So now on to the acquisition. I've had a couple days to think about it. Obviously, my first reaction when I heard about it was absolute horror because I thought that Netflix was going to gut HBO and just eliminate it as a competitor. And also because Netflix really is trying to understand prestige storytelling, but doesn't fully have their hands around it, despite their best efforts. But the word prior to this Paramount hostile takeover bid, is that Netflix plans to keep HBO separate if the deal in fact goes through, which signals that they understand that the HBO brand is unique and cannot be duplicated and absorbed into Netflix and the Netflix model. At the end of the day, Netflix has always wanted HBO's credibility, but could never achieve it under their algorithm-driven, volume-driven system, which may mean that they might actually value HBO's distinctive creative identity more than David Zaslav ever did. I think the key to this actually working out is if they keep Casey Bloys on. The only reason why HBO continued producing great television in the Discovery chaos, like despite all of this, they just won Best Drama for The Pitt in last year's Emmys, is because Casey Bloys was still in power. So I think the survival of HBO under the Netflix merger or the Paramount merger fundamentally depends on whether or not they keep Casey. That's my honest opinion. It might be wishful thinking or blind optimism, but if Netflix retains Casey and restores the creative budgets and gives HBO the autonomy that it needs and that it has utilized to create some of the greatest television of all time, maybe prestige TV might have a path back to life. But I know that that's wishful thinking. I don't know. It's possible. Maybe it could be revived as a protected creative ecosystem if this company is bought by a company that fundamentally understands the asset. I don't know though. I don't know if they do. Anyway, as you guys can tell, I'm very passionate about this topic because I am a huge prestige TV head. I love prestige television. It shapes how I think, feel, and understand storytelling. And also, the English major in me loves these layered, complex characters that slow cook and develop over time. It just provides endless fodder to think about, to psychoanalyze, to turn over in my mind, which is the kind of television that I'm built to consume. Watching HBO get gutted by leadership that fundamentally misunderstood the asset has been honestly devastating for me. I don't know if this Netflix acquisition is potentially hopeful. I don't know. Because Netflix, unlike Discovery, maybe will recognize the cultural asset that HBO actually is because they've spent their entire time competing with them. That said, now there's a bid from Paramount trying to do a hostile takeover. And because Ellison is close to the Trump administration via Oracle, I actually think that the Trump administration, he's already positioned himself to favor the Paramount bid over the Netflix bid. So all of this might be moot. Who knows who's actually going to end up with HBO? But we'll talk about the details of the whole Paramount hostile takeover thing that we're seeing right now. If y'all have watched Succession, like y'all would understand this on a fundamental level. I feel like I understand what's happening because I learned so much from Succession, which is all thanks to Casey Bloys, the architect of modern HBO. Anyway, if HBO is allowed to rebuild what Discovery damaged, maybe they won't be dead. Maybe they'll just be entering a new chapter where they'll be revitalized. Who knows? I don't know. Or maybe television and film and media is dead, just like everybody else is saying. We'll have to find out. Time will tell. All right, well, that's what I have to say. I hope y'all learned something and this gave you some food for thought. So I'll see you guys next time.